Hey guys, in this now today I am going to discuss the OOPS concept, or you can say that is the basic of OOPS concepts, which at least we can have the theoretical knowledge about this OOPS concept because it's a very big topic, and programmatically I have uploaded many videos by in a fragmented parts, different parts. So here today we are going to discuss the OOPS concept. The number one point which is there, what exactly OOPS concept is. OOPS stands for Object Oriented Programming Language. What is that now? Object Oriented Programming Language. What does it mean, meaning of Object Oriented Programming Language? Which means that everything which is around it to or oriented or it's based on the completely object. If any kind of operations you wanted to do, if any sort of things you wanted to do, so that is the object oriented, right? In Java, when we'll see. So Java is a object oriented programming language. With this object oriented programming language, there are the basic four important concepts about the OOPS. What are that four basic important concepts about the OOPS? One is abstractions, encapsulations, inheritance, and polymorphism. Okay. Now, before starting these all things, some things which I wanted to show you or I wanted to tell you. Whenever we ask like OOPS concepts, many people says that like classes, objects, methods, blocks, variables, these all are the part of the OOPS, or you can say that is the OOPS concept. But no, not like that. OOPS concept is a concept, right? So it's not like that on the basis of OOPS only Java language is there or any specific language. OOPS is a general concept, and that principle has been followed by the many different programming languages. Out of that programming languages, Java is a popular programming language which most of the peoples, most of the times, and very in a large area, that is being large number of companies are using this, right? So there is a question. What is that question is? The question first before that is whether it is 100% like Java is 100% object oriented or not, or you can say fully object oriented or not, right? Java is fully object oriented, yes or not? That is one important question. In this, generally, two answers which we will be getting. Number one is, like if I am saying that Java is a fully object oriented language, if I am saying that Java is a 100% object oriented language, so many of us will say that no, it is not 100% object oriented language. So my next question to everyone is, then how much it is object oriented? If it count in the percentage, so how much percentage it is object oriented programming language, right? Or what is the reason that it is not the object oriented, right? So in that, generally I used to ask, and very frequently I got only the two answers. What I have got two answers about the object oriented things, like whether Java is an object. Why they say that Java is not object oriented, fully object oriented? Why they say that Java is not fully object oriented? Because in that two concepts are there. One is primitive data type is there, because of that it is not 100% object oriented. Why? Because these primitive data types are not allowed in the case of collections, or you can say that this primitive data type objects cannot be created. Wait for a minute. Here, what first you should understand what is the meaning of, or what is the purpose of giving the primitive data types, right? Is that the primitive data type is a class that you wanted to create the object of the class? No, it is not a class, right? Primitive data types are not class, but moreover that, in order to overcome this, wrapper classes concept has been introduced, right? So that problem almost has been solved, but the question which is there, generally what we will say, that no, it is not 100% object oriented. Because why? Because we cannot create the object of primitives. 1 minute. What is primitive? Is that, do you think that primitive is an independent component, or do you think that primitive is a dependent component? What do you say about that? Let's say this is my Java program. Suppose this is our notepad. Can I write only int of a is equal to 10? I cannot write it. Simply I cannot write here. just inside a notepad I cannot write this, because this is a dependent component and it must be there inside a class. And inside a class, what all things I can write? I'll show you what all things you can write. I'm writing a class, let's say one class, hello I am writing. So in a class, what all different members we are writing? Is that all the members of a class, for all the members of a class, can we create the object? We cannot create. Similarly, like that itself, this is also one member of a class. So why we are expecting that we should create the object of the class? Okay, somehow if you wanted to create the object, for that wrapper classes are there. Use these wrapper classes wherever you wanted to get it, or wherever you need some references type, you create the object. So let's say here number 1 we can write the variables, number 2 we can write methods in a class, 3 we can write blocks, we can write number 4 what we can write, constructors we can write, number 5 what we can write now, suppose enum we can write, number 6 what we can write is the classes we can write. All these members we can write inside a class. Now if you say that in order to, or for object oriented programming language, the important thing is to create the object, then this does not make any sense, mainly for me. Why it is not making any sense? Because you just understand one thing. Variable is of both type. It is a primitive type of variable and what type? Reference type of variable. Both it is there. So object, wherever we are getting chance to create the object, so for the classes and that corresponding type of, we are creating the object. We cannot create the object of method. We cannot create any object of a method, because method is also a member. Member of what? Class. Similarly, this variable is what? Is a member of class. Understand this point, right? Now you can say, no, method is something which will be having some predefined mindset, right? No, that method is method, variable is variable. No, what is the difference between method and variable, if I want to ask? Variable is having its separate properties, method is having separate properties. Both are having separate properties. So why we are not expecting that we should create the object of method, and why we are expecting that we should create the object of variables? What is the reason behind that? It's a variable, it's a primitive data type, and primitive data type is something for the calculation part, something for the other primitive integer parts, it is being used. The way of memory allocation for the method, same way is there for this also. It depends now where variable you are declaring, either it is a local variable or it is a class level variable, where you are doing that, fine. So this is why I am saying this, that no, if we consider only the reason that Java, and by considering that reason we are saying that Java is not 100% object programming language, so it's wrong. I am not saying that. It's my personal view, what in the past research or past things which I have seen or which I have analyzed, on the basis of that I am saying, right? So it's my personal thing, personal view. You may agree or you may not agree, that all of you are watching this video. So in that, it's a variable, right? Variable. So for variable, if you wanted to create such kind of objects and also go with the wrapper classes, that option is there already. Just do not, please do not say only for the on the basis of variable that it is an not completely object oriented language. Second point now. Some of us will say that in order to access the static members of a class, we need to, or we don't need to create any object. Without creating object itself, we can access the static member of a class. Understand here what you are saying first. First is like, if you are writing a class, already I have explained, if you'll see some videos of JVM memory management, that I have already explained how that members of a class are being accessed, right? How a static member is being accessed. Suppose I am declaring one variable int a, and second one what you are writing, static int b is equal to 2. So what you are saying is that since we can access this variable b, SOP of, suppose I am writing, what I am writing now, hello dot b, I can write it here. So what you are thinking, that b is a static variable and we are able to access directly by the name of class without creating the object, so it is not an object oriented language, is it? It's not like that. What is their concept? That whenever you are accessing any kind of static members, either with the name of class, with the reference variable which contains that, or somehow you are trying to load that class by using some reflection mechanisms. So in that, always, as already I have shown in the case of JVM, so one default object will be created, by default will be done by the JVM, and that default object type will be there, java dot lang dot, which one now? Class. And with the help of this object, we are accessing the static member. So you should have this knowledge first. So according to me, please do not say that Java is not a 100% object oriented language. Definitely there must be some problem, there might be some problem, but these two, apart from these two reasons, you please let me know what all other reasons are there why you are saying that it's not 100% object oriented. So number one, what we will say from here at the conclusion of all that is, number one point is Java is 100% object oriented language, right? Okay. Now I am coming to the main concepts of this object oriented concepts. What are that? Abstraction first. If you say what is abstractions, what I am saying, what is my definition about the abstraction? That abstraction is the process of defining properties and operations for an entity. For an entity, which means what? Means, okay, for an entity. For example, and one more important thing, that we used to say that abstraction is a designable concept. It is not having equivalent programming implementation. What is that? Abstraction is not having equivalent programming implementation. Equivalent programming implementation means what? Equivalent means it is not having the programming use, which means I will tell you that whenever you are start writing, or whenever you are writing any program, whenever you are trying to develop any project, in that the important thing which is coming into the picture is, before writing the program, what is the first task you are doing? First is the creation of a mind. Creation of a mind, which means that your mind is thinking that I need to write this kind of program. I need to write this kind of program. So that is what we are, is the abstraction process. So in one shot, what I am saying is the process of thinking. Process of thinking. That's what we are calling it as an abstraction. Because it is not already, before designing, before starting any projects, we have abstraction task, you have completed it properly. So that is what abstraction process is. So in another term, I can say that let's consider that any mobile phone you consider, or anything you consider like that. Let's say some mobile phone is there. In mobile phone, two options are there. If you'll see the keypad, on that one is the red button is there, and one is the green button is there. Green is there just signifies that to receive the call, and red is there to disconnect the call. Okay, fine. But understand one point, that somebody would have already discovered these conventions, that green will be there to receive the call and red will be there to disconnect the call. But you just know that green is there to receive the call. You don't know why green is there to receive the call. What is the logic behind that? Because those who have developed that, they have not told you that this is the reason why green is there to receive the call, or this is why red is there to disconnect the call. You don't know process behind that, you don't know the concepts behind that which has been applied in order to develop that. That is what we will call it as hiding the complexity. Hiding the complexity in the sense, the process of thinking has been involved while developing that thing that is not being exposed to you. But what generally we think about the abstraction, about abstraction we are thinking like, no, process of hiding the data. Hiding means we are writing everything inside a class, so that is abstraction. Not like that. As I explained you, that's something which is there, but in one shot I can say that process of thinking which you are thinking in order to develop a project, and that is what is the abstraction. So there is no process, or there is no nothing like that. Okay, the next point again, what is that? Like encapsulation. What is encapsulation? Encapsulation means capsule. What is there? Capsule. Have you heard the name of capsule? Everything which we are combining and keeping all together. that is what we will call it as an encapsulation. Encapsulations relates to, like we are writing a class, like some class ABC you have written. Inside the class, almost all the required members we are writing. So whenever we wanted to access any member of a class, directly we can access associated with that class, or we can give the reference of that class. So that's what it is encapsulation is. Or in another form you can say the different members of a class you are defining inside the, or different members in a class you are defining with a proper access modifiers. What is that now? Proper access modifiers. So these proper access modifiers which has been used, the proper access modifiers which has been used with the corresponding members of a class, right? Corresponding members of a class, like if I am writing here, what I am writing now, private int of a is equal to 10 I am writing. Proper access modifier I am using. Why I am saying this? Because I know my application requirement, why I am declaring it as in private, I am encapsulating it. All together I am writing, right? So it's in private and it will not be allowed to be accessed from outside the class. But in that itself, some member I can write it here as an, let's say that is public int of b is equal to, let's say I am writing 20. It can be accessed anywhere. So in another form, like when we are writing private, there is always one term when we will talk degree of encapsulation. What is the degree of encapsulation? The 100% encapsulated program which we cannot have, means almost every member of a class is private, nobody can access anything from that class, anything which we cannot do. That is there is no use of all that, right? So I hope you understand what is the encapsulation, right? Even sometimes when we are writing data hiding, we are saying, so data is hiding is also the part of encapsulation itself, right? Sometimes we used to say that this is also the encapsulation. Okay, so we have seen two things. One, abstraction, a short brief introduction I am giving about all that. In the further topics we will see the programmatic implementation of all that. So the abstraction first, encapsulation is this. Now I am coming to the inheritance. What is the inheritance first? In one shot, I don't want to extend it more, which is more clear about everyone, that inheritance is the process of using the code which has already been declared, which has been already defined in some class somewhere, and that we are reusing in our application. That is what we will call it as an inheritance, right? There is the concept of, see, I am explaining that inheritance concept. What is that inheritance now? Inheritance, two things are there, the superclass and subclass. Suppose this is your A, and second now, what you are writing next now, class B. So this we can call it as an super class, I am calling it as an, next one what I am calling it as an subclass. Okay. In order to use that class, we need to use the extends keyword. So by using this extends keyword, we are extending that class, right? So this is means the things which has already been defined that we are using in our application, that is what we will call it as an inheritance. There are many different types of inheritances are there, many different types of inheritance concepts are there that we will discuss in the corresponding topic of the inheritance, right? But important point about the inheritance, I will tell to you, all of you. Whenever we are talking about Java, one thing which comes in the mind of all of you, that inheritance or multiple inheritance is not allowed in the case of Java. No, you cannot say that multiple inheritance is not allowed in the case of Java. What you can say is that multiple inheritance is not allowed in Java through classes. Through classes it is not allowed. Fine. Multiple inheritance which is there is not allowed through classes, whereas the same multiple inheritance is allowed through interfaces, right? So make it clear that one is allowed, is not allowed through the classes, but it is allowed through the interfaces. So this is what these corresponding things will be there inside that. Fine. Now again, the last but very, very important topic among all of that is the polymorphism. One short thing which I will tell you about the polymorphism is what is the polymorphism. Polymorphism is the process of behaving one form differently in different cases, which means something one is there which is behaving in the different cases. I'd like to take a very simple example, which I hope all of you might understand that. What is that? What is that important example is, let's consider any remote. In any kind of remote, we will find a button. Let's say that is the red button is there. So this red button which is there is to switch on and switch off the corresponding devices, right? But only one button. When red button is there, when this red button, the task of red button or the behavior of red button will be changed depending on the state of that corresponding device. Let's say television. If the television is on, then the task of that is to switch off it. If it is off, then the task of that red button is to switch on it. So one form, one button, one key is behaving differently in the different cases. In the parallel case, again, this is mainly of two types. The polymorphism which is there is mainly of how many types? Two types. What is that two types is there now? In the polymorphism, what is that two types? One is compile time. Compile time polymorphism is there. And the second one is the runtime polymorphism is there. About this compile time polymorphism as well as the runtime polymorphism, we will discuss in a proper manner, in a complete in-depth manner in that corresponding topics. Even I have uploaded many videos on the basis of this polymorphism, like compile time, method overloading, and runtime, method overriding with the dynamic dispatch. So I have given just a short introduction about the OOPS concept, and this OOPS concept we can use in your, means anywhere you can tell in the interviews. Now, there's one important question on the basis of OOPS concept whenever you are going for any interview, mainly on the basis of experience if you are going, or you are going as a fresher. The important question is that in your application, in your project, where exactly you have used which OOPS concept, right? Or maybe they will tell you that without using, let's say, without using abstractions, can I develop applications, or without using inheritance, can I develop the applications? So this kind of important interview questions which is there that we used to discuss in the class, and many other things about that we'll be discussing in the class. Thank you.